Spiritual gumbo. Jacob's struggle. Now, before we go all the way into this, before I even get carried away, I got to say two things. Number one, remember, we have to remember that the sons of Laban, verse 1 of chapter 31, are speaking to Jacob, and they're telling Jacob, they're saying, hey, Laban's saying you've pretty much taken you've taken our fathers, you've taken what was our father's, all that was his, and our father's property. Has he gotten all this glory of our father's property? Now we're going to pick off into this. We're going to go on down, but we need to understand that we leave off with Jacob becoming rich and the cattle, right? Because Jacob starts to pull this move where he understands the genealogy and he understands the mating measures of the animals. And let's just pick up there so that way people don't get it wrong. And it says, verse 34, and Laban said to him, let it be according to thy word. And he separated in the day the spotted and speckled he-goats. And that day, the spotted and speckled he-goats, and all the spotted and speckled she-goats, and all that was gray among the rams, and every one that was white among them. And he gave them into the hands of his sons. Stop right there. That is Laban giving that into the hands of his sons, the sons of Jacob. Okay? Because Laban never had any sons. But the sons that he's acquired are the children through his daughters, much like the children that Rachel perceived that she would have through her handmaid Bala. No different. Because this person comes from me. One person has a sense of ownership. Understand that. The other person has a sense of entitlement. Now, and the entitlement and the ownership are not the same thing, because if Rachel could have her own children, she wouldn't claim that all the children of her handmaid are her children in like manner, because she gives her handmaid to Jacob for a wife, as does Leah with Zilpah. And we're going to go down. We're going to skip through all this. And do you guys pick up how because we leave off reading the all the sons of Jacob, right? And I really left off talking to you about the cattle, but we have to jump into this full head on, because you have to understand that the sons of Laban are the sons of Jacob. If you don't understand that, then nothing will make sense to you. He's been there for a long time, so it doesn't tell us in tow how long he's been, how old the young boys are now. Right on? And how some of them are young men. Anyway, let's just keep it going. And it says here, and Jacob took, excuse me. And he set, verse 36, a 3 days journey between them and Jacob. So he puts a 3 day journey between them, so that way there's time between them. It will take time for either one of us to have to go see the other. Right on? Bang. And this also makes it to where there's plenty of land for all the cattle to eat on. Having said that, we go forward. It says, verse 37, and Jacob took himself green rods of storax trees and and plane trees, and peeled them in white stripes. And he drew off the green. Stop. And the white stripes, he made them appear alternate on the rod. Stop right there. So what it's saying is that he took good enough rods of a tree, right, which we would call a stick, right? And you know how you skin down the first level of the bark, right? And it's green right underneath it, and if you skin it again, it becomes the wood. So this is what he does. He stripes it like that. He stripes it with the green sap and then the white wood, okay? And then what he does is he laid the rods which he had peeled in the hollows of the watering troughs, that whensoever the cattle should come to drink, as they should have come to drink before the rods, the cattle might conceive at the rods. So the cattle conceived at the rods. Stop right there. So he created a mechanism where in which they would conceive at the rods. Okay, and by in such doing so, this would create a change in the genotype, which would create a change in the phenotype. Okay, hold on, keeping it going forth there. So the cattle conceived at the rods, and the cattle brought forth young speckled and streaked and spotted with ash-colored spots. And Jacob separated the lambs, and separated the sheep, a speckled ram, and separated before the sheep a speckled ram, and every variegated one among the lambs. And he separated flocks for himself alone, and did not mingle, what? And did not mingle them with the sheep of Laban. Stop right there. So what it's saying right now is that he created a process, he knew a process, where in which he could make the sheep do such a trick. Now this is a trick that he would have learned from who? From Isaac, his father. Who would have learned from who? From Abraham, who was what? A rich cattleman, a rich shepherdsman, considered and likened to a king. So you better know he knows some tricks. His servants know some tricks. Going forward, Jacob is using one of these tricks, right? He's pulling one of these at the bag, right? And he's getting these cattle, he's getting these sheep, he's getting these goats and these rams, okay? And he's setting them before all the animals that he wants them to breed with, and then to make likened animals likened to the images that he knows that they're going to produce, which are gray, spotted, and speckled rams, goats, or he-goats and she-goats, okay? Now, having said that, I need to read something to you. This is chapter 89 of the book of Enoch. Listen to this and listen to it clear, because I'm only going to say it once about this, and I hope you understand what I'm talking about. I pray to God you do. Chapter 89. And we're going to start in the middle of verse 12. But that bull which was born from him begat a black boar and a white sheep. And the former begat many boars. But that sheep begat 12 sheep. What? But that sheep begat 12 sheep. Stop right there. We're going to leave it there until we get to the next part of that whole story. Don't worry. What I just read to you covers an entire section, entire level of what we've been reading. Going forth. And this is the sheep we're reading about right now. This is the sheep who begat the 12 sheep that we're reading about right now. Hold on. And what is he doing? He's making himself rich. How so? By making himself a rich cattleman. And how does he do this? Because he tells his uncle, hey, look, uncle, when I got here, you didn't have none of this. So his uncle has to capitulate that if he's going to stay here, this is how it's going to be. And he knew how to do this because he knows that I can get more of them to be likened to this than I can to be likened to the other way. Easier. Come on. And how he doesn't get greedy or too greedy or do too much is he doesn't mingle them with the sheep of Laban. Verse 41, and it came to pass in the time wherein the cattle became pregnant, conceiving in the belly, Jacob put the rods before the cattle and the troughs, that they might conceive by the rods. But he did not put them in indiscriminately. What that means is that when the cattle of Laban were doing this, he didn't do that so that way his cattle would continue to produce the white sheep. And I'm sure whenever his ones, listen. He had a way of making it to where the sheep he were going to produce, the goats and the rams, were going to continue to produce speckled gray ones. Okay? And the perfect ones, the better looking ones, he was going to have those set off for Laban. So now what you would call, we call this gene variance, okay? Right? Okay, now understand, in the gene variance, what takes place is the man makes it to where what is a clear coat is now no longer a clear coat, but it's colored with gray. And if it's not colored with gray, it's colored with spots and speckles, making it lesser perfect, if you will. Okay? And then inasmuch, because he purposely breeds them to do so much, he becomes richer, or he becomes more rich in this avenue or this approach of his practice. This must mean that Laban has to be the person who takes the latter. Having said that, we go forth. Verse 42. But he did not put them in indiscriminately. Whenever the cattle happened to bring forth, but the marked ones were Laban's, but the unmarked ones were Laban's, and the marked ones Jacob's. And the man became very rich, and he had many cattle, and oxen, and servants, and maidservants, and camels, and asses. Stop right there. So off of not his own things, but things that he, listen. You worked for the wives. The children that you have with them bring you joy. They have to bring you joy. They have to make you happy. The fact that you have so many sons has to make you even happier. So the fact that now, once again though, but the Lord said that God said he was going to do what? He was going to bring him up, right? So this does not go against anything that he was told against the being that is not from earth. In fact, this is in line with it. But just understand that being in tow with the divine being may mean that you are out of line with people or out of joint with them at certain points and at certain cross sections in life. Having said that, let's go forth. But the man did become very rich. So much so that, listen to this, verse 1 of chapter 31. And Jacob heard the words of the sons of Laban, his own sons, saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and of our father's property has he gotten all this glory. Stop right there. So pretty much everything that should be mine is yours, and you only have this because what is mine? Come on. Because of my property, because what was mine. Verse 2, when Jacob saw the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of thy father, to thy family, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Leah and Rachel to the plain where the flocks were. And he said to them, I see the face of your father, that it is not toward me as before, but the God of my father was with me. And ye too know that with all my might I have served your father. But your father deceived me, and changed my wages for 10 lambs. Yet God gave him not power to hurt me. If he should say thus, the speckled shall be thy reward, then all the cattle would bear speckled. If he should say thus, the speckled shall be thy reward, then all the cattle would bear speckled. And if he should say the white shall be thy reward, then would all the cattle bear white. So God has taken away all the cattle of your father and given them to me. And it came to pass when the cattle conceived, and were with young, that I beheld with mine eyes in sleep, and behold, the he goats and the rams leaping on the sheep, and the she goats speckled and variegated, and spotted with ash colored. And the angel of God said to me in a dream, Jacob. And I said, what is it? And he said, look up with thine eyes. And behold, the he goats and the ram leaped on the sheep and the she goats, speckled and variegated, and spotted with ash colored. For I have seen all the things Laban does to thee. I am God that appeared to thee in the place of God, where thou anointest a pillar to me. It's the funniest word. It's anointedest, a pillar to me. And vowedest to me there a vow. Now then, arise and depart out of this land, and depart into the land of thy nativity, and I will be with thee. Stop right there. Let me say something so cold to y'all. Even as the prophet he is, understand, this is the reason why the Most High God is like, don't mate with the Syrians. Because they can't wait to take from you what they think is theirs. But if you listen to what Jacob said, he was like, look, this is why he did what he did with the rods in the first place. Right? Now it makes all sense. He's like, look, your dad gave me 10 lambs. Okay? There were a whole bunch of white sheep. All right? You feel me? He said, I'll give you all these ones. Okay? So what Jacob did was, he's like, all right, I'm going to do some stuff that I know to do from back home. And all of a sudden, and did you see what he said? In his dream, the goats that the situation that he was making to have happen took place in his dream. Like, yo, these he goats are going to mate with these she goats, the speckled and the other ones who were already speckled, right? So the numbers of her father's sheep dwindled or just became dwarfed to the numbers of the speckled and the funny colored ones, right? And the ashen colored ones, right? And so now it becomes an issue of, he has all these servants, all these people. Well, you can't just run up on Jacob now. Right now you're salty. Right. But Laban's sons, who are his grandchildren, are going to also see it from their grandfather's point of view, their father's point of view of, look, man, your father came here because his brother liked to kill him. And I put him on, and this is how he repays me. So you have to have sense to see it from both sides of the coin. But I will say, because he's my ancestor, I see it from his side of the coin. But I have enough foresight to know that Laban is also an ancestor, an uncle and a father to your people, to our people. Respect the game. So respect all that. Having said that, I go forward. Verse 14, and Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, have we yet a part or inheritance to the house of our father? Are we not considered strangers by him? For he has sold us and quite devoured our money. All the wealth and the glory which God has taken from our father, it shall be ours and our children's. Now then, do whatsoever God has said to thee. And Jacob arose and took his wives and children and rose up on the camels and took away all his possessions and all his store which he had gotten in Mesopotamia and all that belonged to him to depart to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's images. And Jacob hid the matter from Laban the Syrian, so as not to tell him that he ran away. And he departed himself and all that belonged to him, and passed over the river, into the mountain Goliad. Stop right there. The only way you pass over that river is what? Is the great river Euphrates. Understand, man. Listen. People think that I'm tripping. People think that I'm talking smack. But this is another reason why the Syrians were like, yo, because they were so close. They were so much closer to the Chaldean people, Babylon, whatever you want to call it, right? They were so much closer to them. That's another reason why you can't be with them. Right on? Now, see, why this is so important is because you're not hearing about Babylon right now. And why this is even more important is because we know that Babylon is a place. See, you have to understand that the history of the so-called Chaldean, of the true Semite people, is that they are hostile invaders. And they go and take stuff over. And one of the things that they did repetitiously through history, even through the latter seed of the Assyrians, is forcibly invade Babylon and take it over and assume the throne. Look it up if you don't believe me. This being said, the Most High God tells the chosen people, look, you can't do what these people are doing. And note, this is why the activity that Jacob is engaging in is not frowned upon right now, but is corrected later through commandments. Rock with me. Everything he's doing is literally against the commandments. Going forward. 22. But it was told Laban the Syrian on the third day that Jacob was fled, and having taken his brethren with him, he pursued after him 7 days' journey, and overtook him on Mount Galaad. And God came to Laban the Syrian in sleep by night, and said to him, take heed to thyself. God, not the Lord God, the Messiah came to him, right? Came to Laban the Syrian in sleep by night, and said to him, take heed to thyself, that thou speak not at any time to Jacob evil things. And Laban overtook Jacob, and pitched his tent in the mountain. And Laban stationed his brothers in the Mount Galaad. And Laban said to Jacob, what hast thou done? Wherefore didst thou run away secretly, and pillage me, and lead away my daughters as captives with the sword? Wherefore, whereas if thou hast told me, I would have sent thee away with mirth, and with songs and timbrels and harp. And harp, listen to this right here. This is that BS. Okay, listen. Oh my goodness. I love it. Listen to what this guy's saying. I'm going to break it down to you. Because he knows that you can't just run up on Jacob. He has servants. So he goes there with his brothers, right? But what do though? They lay siege on him, pretty much, right? You see what I'm saying? You know, they overtake him, right? But what they do is, he says to Jacob, look, bruh, you took away my daughters with the sword, so pretty much like you forced them to leave with you. Right on. There's no way they left with you on their own free will, even though we just read that they did. So understand what's playing out right now, right? And he's like, if you had told me, I would have sent you away happy and all that, you know, with the songs and listen to how he's trying to play it now, right? Because he was told by a force that he knows is not a human and can touch him. Because he was warned, he was like, look, bro, if you do something, pretty much don't do nothing stupid. I'm telling you, man, this is so epic. Let's just keep reading. Verse 28. And I was not counted worthy to embrace my children and my daughters. What? My children and my daughters? So he's saying his sons, right, who are the sons of Jacob, who are through his daughters, his children as well, right? Because they have to bear the children, right? And he's saying that you're going to just take my babies from me, pretty much. Now then, thou hast wrought foolishly, and now my hand has power to hurt thee. But the God of thy father spoke to me yesterday, saying, take heed to thyself, that thou speak no evil words to Jacob. Now listen, understand. He doesn't know that this same God is the same God of his father. Word is bond. Now, word also be taken that did anybody scope out the fact that Rachel stole or took away her father's images, her father's idols? See, these are little things that you have to pay attention to. Small little things. Word. And that's what they believed in. That's what they worshipped and prayed to. And Jacob didn't worship and pray to none of that stuff. But Jacob dipped on this dude and didn't say nothing. And that's what he was hot about. He being Laban. Now here we go. Verse 30. Now then, go on thy way, for thou hast earnestly desired to depart to the house of thy father. Wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? And Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid. For I said, lest at any time thou shouldest take away thy daughters from me and all my possessions. And Jacob said, with whomsoever thou shalt find thy gods, he shall not live in the presence of our brethren. Take notice of what I have of thy property, and take it. And he observed nothing with him. But Jacob knew not that his wife Rachel had stolen them. And Jacob went in and searched in the house of Leah, and found them not. And he went out of the house of Leah, and searched in the house of Jacob, and in the house of the two maidservants, and found them not. And he went also into the house of Rachel. And Rachel took the idols, and cast them into the camel's pack, and sat upon them. And she said to her father, be not indignant, sir. I cannot rise up before thee, for it is with me according to the manner of women. Check this out. Check this out. Did you hear what she did? You hear what she did? She played that game. Right? She hit him. Because she worships those gods. Right? See, understand. We never get an indication that the women actually believe what these men believe. Never do you actually get that indication that they actually truly believe, really believe. Because it's the men that make sacrifice. It's the men that do these things. Right on? To give homage. We're going to go forward. Laban searched in all the house, and found not the images. And Jacob was angry, and strove with Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my injustice, and what my sin, that thou hast pursued after me, and that thou hast searched all the furniture of my house? And what hast thou found of all the furniture of thine house? Set it here between thy relations and my relations, and let them decide between us two. These 20 years have I been with thee. Thy sheep and thy she-goats have not failed in bearing. I have devoured not the rams of thy cattle. That which was taken of beast, I brought not to thee. That which was taken of beast, I brought not to thee. I made good of myself the thefts of the day, and the thefts of the night. I was parched with heat by day, and chilled with frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. Listen to him break down the struggle, okay? Because just in case you never thought I was going to get it, that's the struggle. This is the struggle of Jacob. All the stuff I put up with. I told you, a day in the life is not monitored in this book. Respect my observation. Respect the fact that it takes time to see that, and he's telling you right now some of the things that he put up with. Whenever your things were stolen, I paid for that. I gave you back for that. These are little things. That's minutia, my people. And you don't even respect and appreciate the fact that I bring it to you like this. Some of you do. There's a few of you who do, who really love me. But I know the rest of them are just out here to use and abuse me because they think that I don't know nothing. That's okay. While I be a man of little means in this world, I tell you the things that I cannot physically give to you are so abundant that it's a shame. And on that note, I say this right here and we end. That man said, these 20 years I have been with thee in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years among thy sheep, and thou didst falsely rate my wages for 10 lambs. Unless I had the God of my father Abraham and the fear of Isaac, now thou wouldest have sent me away empty. God saw my humiliation and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesterday. And Laban answered and said to Jacob, the daughters are my daughters, the sons are my sons, the cattle are my cattle, and all the things which thou seest are mine. And all the things which thou seest are mine, and the property of my daughters. What shall I do to them today, or their children, which they bore? Now then, come, let me make a covenant, both I and thou, and it shall be between a witness between me and thee. And he said to him, behold, there is no one with us. And Jacob, having taken a stone, set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said to his brethren, gather stones. And they gathered stones, and they made a heap, and ate there upon the heap. And Laban said to him, this heap between me and thee, this heap witness between me and thee today. And Laban called it the heap of testimony, and Jacob called it the witness heap. And Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap and the pillar which I have set between me and thee. This heap witness and this pillar witness. Therefore its name was called the heap witness. And the vision of which he said, let God look to it between me and thee, because we are about to depart from each other. And if thou shalt humble my daughters, if thou shalt take wives in addition to my daughters, see, there is no one with us looking on. God is witness between me and thee. And Laban said to Jacob, behold, this heap and this pillar are a witness. For if I should not cross over unto thee, neither shouldest thou cross over to me. For mischief be on this heap and this pillar. And the God of Abraham and the God of Nachor judge between us. And the God of and the God of Abraham and the God of Nachor judge between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. And he offered a sacrifice in the mountain. And he called his brethren. And they ate and drank and slept in the mountain. And Laban rose up in the morning and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them. And Laban, having turned back, departed to his place. I said all that stuff right there to say this. Y'all just don't understand, or just don't want to understand, or just don't want to accept that what you've been reading about has not been some kind of huggy, feel-good story. It has been one that you could argue there was a lot of hard feelings to get to that point. And like they say, to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. And I will be darned if the Most High God is not breaking a few eggs to make the omelet that is going to be known as Israel. With that said, Spiritual Gumbo out.